we're back again, and
back.
JP
And,
is gonna let us
this
know what he's been doing.
And this is Obi. Oh my gosh, my video is going crazy, but that's Obi.
Oh, he only has one ear and half a face. No, here it comes. What other dog?
I love his just tongue is just like.
Oh, always, dude. Always.
How old is he?
He's 3.
Oh, a little pugger. And bite that nose.
So JP, catch us up. What's going on?
Yeah, let me catch up. So before we ended last time, I had been dating Mike for a while, and we are still together. We're now living together.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
Introduced you. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that's 9 years too, right?
Yes, it was 9 years, January 26th, I think, something like that.
January? I had a barbecue in January. Oh, no, until you were officially dating.
So we met, and then it was like 6 months later that we started dating. But
I remember the barbecue. God, that's so cute.
Sausage fest.
I think it was, it was funny because that was, I'm trying to think, that was not long after I moved to that bungalow, and it was the fires were happening north of there, and like at night the ash was falling into the yard, and that was like freaking me out. Like the nearest flame, I don't remember where the fire was or which fire it was, but it was like 17 miles away, and there was ash falling in the backyard after that barbecue. And I was like, oh shit.
And it was that bungalow where we recorded for the first time.
Yeah,
I think that's when we
little house.
Yeah.
Is it there, or was it not at your place?
No, it was there. We recorded at your house for a few times.
I think it might have even been when we sat down to see whether or not we could do this, and it was sort of like the play test, and then we did it at my house for a bit as well.
Yeah, episode 1A and 1B were definitely recorded at yours, Dave. So
yeah. And then we were doing it in Mike D's garage for a while. So
sorry, there's like a huge bug crawling on my desk.
You're using toilet paper for that? That stuff is gold.
It's not toilet paper. It's a lint brush.
No, it's toilet paper.
Oh, was it? Oh, it looked like a lint brush.
Why don't you just use $100 bills? I mean,
because why wouldn't you have a roll of toilet paper sitting at your desk? I mean,
well, I have to blow my nose sometimes,
I'm sure you're blowing some kind of snot out of your body. The cack snot.
And finally Dave catches up.
Yay.
All right, so back to me.
Yes, please.
So what I did, I was working for a company at the time. The company got bought, and it sounded like it was going to be amazing because they come in and like, we want to do this, this, and this. And we're looking at each other going, oh my gosh, this is the kind of the things that we have been talking about trying to do for the past 6 months. And then they're like, yeah, so we're going to do this. We're just kind of research how to get this all together. And then 2 months later, they came back and laid everybody off. So just kidding. We actually just kind of wanted your domain name. So I left that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it was a very basic domain name too, wasn't it? It was like a commonbusinessword.com or something, whatever it was.
Yeah. And then about a month later, I started working temporarily on this job, and they liked me. And so they found a way to hire me permanently. So I was there for a couple of years. Left there last year, and now, like I said, I've been working at this place that we sell puppies, and so I'm doing that for a little while. I know, it's super cute, because I have to look at pictures of puppies all day long. I mean,
that sounds absolutely horrible.
No, what do you mean they sell puppies?
Torture.
Well,
so
they have puppies and they sell them to people.
Yeah.
They give them to people in exchange for money. I understand.
They connect. Yes, they connect with people. They connect with breeders who are AKC certified.
So wait, they only work with straight people? Because that's fucked up.
I didn't make that joke, and I didn't. I passed.
All right, that's the last time I'm going to interrupt JP. I promise.
No, it's not. And you know it's not.
I'm going to try not to interrupt JP again.
Anyway. They're very, very
fuzzy,
serious about not using puppy mill type puppy farm, puppy mill, whatever. They're working with breeders who are responsible and AKC certified and blah, blah, blah. So, and that's basically it is, they work with breeders and they make sure that you get your puppy, that it's got, full health coverage and our health check, that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's pretty cool. And
Neat.
I get to look at pictures of puppies all day. So
how long have you been with them?
So only like 6 months. It's a short-term contract thing. But yeah, a friend of ours, I knew they were looking for stuff. I talked to them and said, hey, this is what I can do. And I'm currently not really doing anything right now. And they're like, well, so come interview. And so I'm there. Anyway,
cool.
Can you get a discount on puppies for friends and family?
No.
Do they have a scratch and dent section, like a puppy, like if it's missing a leg or something?
A gently used puppy.
Right.
So, and then other things since the podcast, I moved into the mic a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
You're welcome.
Yeah. You guys have a great house too. I love your house.
I know.
Thank you. Yeah, we redid lasers everywhere, which because
the cats love it. I bet. Right?
Lasers.
And there's like a Jar Jar Binks room, like it's just all Jar Jar Binks.
There is. No, I don't see it. Anyway, let's see what else. Yeah. Also, like Dave, we've done some trips. We went to Hawaii, which was amazing. We've been to New Orleans 3 times. It's fantastic. So I think the biggest thing for me, one of 2 big things for me is like 23andMe. Mike got me 23andMe. So, and if you are not familiar with what that is it's genetic testing where they try to find, it's a bunch of stuff that'll tell you like your possible health issues and, your ancestry-ish, like what part of the world you're from, or if you're even from part of this world. And, distant relatives, usually you'll find out, and you can go on and say, yes, share my information. And then they'll say, this person's a second cousin, this person's, 5th cousin or whatever. And that's kind of cool. And mostly what I wanted as an adopted person, I wanted to have an idea of health issues that I might have to look out for that are genetic based issues that I would know because I have no idea what any of that is. So, anyway, they gave me 23andMe I think it was for Christmas. I did it. I sent the results in. You have to wait like 6 weeks or something to get something back. And I get the results back, and right at the very top, it says half sister. And I was like, wait, I have a sister? Holy crap. So I went out and I looked at Mike, and he's just sitting on the couch, and I'm just like, I need to talk to you. And I just like sort of sat down. I'm like this hasn't sunk in yet, but apparently I have a half sister out there. And so I got in touch with her, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we started talking to each other.
In much the same fashion, by the way.
Actually, yeah, I've got pictures of her and pictures of her in high school and pictures of me in high school. Other than having a slightly different haircut, we had almost exact same face. I mean, is
it like when Bugs Bunny dressed up as a woman with just like eyelashes and lipstick, but it looks exactly like you? She has a great beard.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyway, she came out to visit a couple of years ago, I think it was, and she's awesome. She's so much fun. She lives in New Jersey. She's a 5th grade science teacher in New Jersey. She has the mouth of a sailor. She will swear more than anybody.
It's Jersey people are.
It's Jersey. Yeah, come on.
But yeah, so it was. What's the word I'm looking for? It was sort of eye-opening to find that there's somebody else out there who is a blood relative. And as an adopted person, you're part of this family, and you know where they are. And if you're not adopted, you just this is your family, and you have a history, and you're like, oh yeah, my grandfather did this, or these are my people. And as an adopted person, you have no history, you have no background, you don't know anything about yourself really. And finding somebody else.
And just a side note, she was adopted too, right? Like
yes.
she ended up getting adopted as well. Yeah.
She was also adopted. So she was adopted early on. She was probably adopted, I think it was like at a month or just a few weeks. I was adopted at 14 months. So let me come back to that. But anyway, it changes your look on a lot of things when you finally realize, oh my gosh, there's somebody else out there that I am actually really related to. And all of a sudden I have a little bit of a history, but she's also adopted. And so she doesn't know anything about her family. But what we found out is that she is 23 days older than I am. She's 23 days older than I am.
Wow.
So I'm letting Dave think through that one.
So the commonality is your father, I'm guessing then, right?
Yeah.
Was rather prolific.
So now, she was born
have you measured
her
kidneys just in case you need one too?
Hey, from someone who knows, it's always good to have a spare kidney lying around.
She was in New Jersey. I was born in New York. And we think basically he just, was stuffing his way up the seaboard right there. So there may be others of us out there. We don't know. We think we actually found who our father is, but we haven't had a chance to get in touch with him. And it's one of those things that's part of it is a delicate situation because he is married. He's got 2 kids who are also grown. And we don't want to be like, we're trying to ruin your life or anything. We don't need anything from you. We don't want money. We don't want fame. If this guy is who we think he is, he's he used to work at Smithsonian Institute in herpetology. So he's published herpetology, lizards,
turtles.
And turtles.
Oh, I think it said herpetology. Never mind. Okay. So now wait a minute.
Herpetology.
What I'm interested in knowing is how did you find out? Without giving too much detail, how did you research him? Was it as simple as figuring out his name and then looking him up on Facebook, or what was it?
It's a little more than that. So she years ago tried to get in touch with the judge who performed the adoption, whatever, for her. And this guy was retired. He was in his 90s at the time, and he sent her documents. But he forgot to redact a couple things on the documents as legally you're supposed to. And her thought was, he's 95. What are they going to do? Disbar him? He's going to be dead in a few years. So he probably did it on purpose to say, here you go. Oops, I forgot because I'm 95. She had some information, but she didn't have very much. And through 23andMe, she got in contact with a couple of people. So everybody else that we have met have all been second cousins, third cousins, nobody really, really, really close. But she got in touch with somebody and said, oh yeah, this sounds familiar. This guy's name, we only had a first name. So I think it's him, blah, 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 blah. So she did a little bit of sleuthing work and tried to figure out who he is. So there's that. We want to get in touch with him. We don't want to say, we don't want money. We don't want anything else. We just want to know, are you him? Do we have, give us a little more of our history. Where are we from? Who are we? In January of this year, New York adoption records are now open, kind of. So what I was able to do is I was able to get my original birth certificate. So the birth certificate I have lists my adopted parents' names. So with my pre-adoption birth certificate, I've got my mother's name, I've got my name, what I was named originally. I still don't have my father's name. His name is not on there. But I had her address. So I looked up her address. Her address turned out to be a maternity ward, which is right next to an Episcopalian church. So her living address was the maternity ward. So she was probably a girl who got herself in trouble. Age listed as 21. But so my first name, birth name, Michael.
Joan.
Edgar.
Joan. Michael Anthony.
Oh, I thought you were born a girl. I'm sorry. I'm confused. All right. Yeah.
Michael Anthony? Is that what you said?
Michael Anthony. First and middle name, Michael Anthony. I don't feel like a Michael Anthony.
Well, you don't play bass. You don't play bass in Van Halen, so
Yeah.
you know.
So yeah.
Michelangelo, you're sort of turtley, no?
So anyway, yeah, that is
Like,
interesting. I have her name.
God, I just can't imagine the feelings you go through when you not only sort of find out him, but then find out another name and everything else. God, I mean, how are you processing this? Are you, obviously this isn't new news. You've had this news for a few years, right? This information you've acquired.
Her name was January. So I found out her name actually in February. So I applied in January and I got the results in February. So it's only been a couple months.
Oh, wow.
That I've known. And it was all, of course, before all of this stuff happened. So now, of course, being that she's if she's still alive, she's an at-risk person because she's, probably in her 70s. Yeah. So the next step is to try to get in touch and say, hi. Tell me a little bit about who you are. Who am I? But other than that,
it's crazy. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Wait, so have you been able to locate her based on her name?
No. The only thing I was able to locate is where I was given birth to, is the address she listed, which unfortunately is no longer there. That building is gone.
The doctor's hospital?
No, maternity ward.
No, was the hospital doctor's hospital? Because I know that's
possibly. I have to take a look. I have some paperwork.
Oh, okay.
I have to take a look. I have. I think I've got the doctor's name that performed the birth, and I'm pretty sure I've got the lawyer/agency that performed the adoption.
So, are you going to use like one of those like people finder sites or something like that? Like, what do you have a plan for that yet, or you have really?
Or even get like a private investigator or something.
Yeah,
it's tougher with a woman too because she could have married at some point and had a completely different name.
Right,
exactly.
Might have a different name.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting. Wow. Gosh.
Yeah, the thing would be to try to find like high school yearbooks from around the time that she would have been in high school, and then look up her name in high school around that era, around that age. But I don't know. So Ryan Zellers, friend of ours, he loves doing this. He loves doing that genetic research for people. So I'm probably going to talk to him and say, hey, let's start the process and see what we can do.
That's cool.
That's fun. Interesting. And today's and now, I mean, before you'd been flying all over the country and going to file cabinets and and all this other stuff, and now, I mean, all this stuff is so much easier.
Yeah.
So I kind of a funny 23andMe story because my cousins have all done it and stuff like that. So they were like, "Oh, you got to do it," and I did it, and it came up, and they all came up as like my first cousins and stuff like that. Well, then, about a year ago, I want to say, some guy shows up on mine as first cousin with a last name we don't recognize. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So I messaged my cousins and I said, hey, look at your 23andMe and see if this guy shows up on yours too, to see if it's a a maternal connection or a paternal connection. And it shows up and it shows up on theirs too. And I'm like, okay, so it's a connection through our mother. So this is some first cousin that we've never heard of, don't recognize the last name, nothing. So my one cousin, she's like, all right, let me ask my mother because certainly she'll know who it is. And like, we're sure it's my Uncle Johnny because he was an alley cat. And and the time that the guy was born too would have been, while he was married because the guy's close to the age of his own son and everything else. And so she contacts his mother. She contacts her mother, and her mother says, "Oh yeah, that's whatever Joan's kid or Jan's kid or whatever the woman's name was." And she's like, "Yeah, your uncle was always messing around with her and blah blah blah." So it's no surprise that she had a kid. And they said, "Well, who was she? Like, what was her story?" And he said, "Well, she owned the beauty shop in town, and her nickname was Boobs." And so,
well, there you have it.
Knowing my uncle and the other women in his life, his two wives or whatever, it checks out. So I mean, it was like kind of a thing. So my cousin, I was afraid to reach out to the guy, actually, because he's some sort of like physical fitness guru, and I found him on Facebook or whatever. and he had posted something like, I don't know, it was like a couple years ago. He's not very active on Facebook apparently. Something like, oh, it's like a day for the fatties at the gym or something like that, like making fun of fat people. And I'm like, nope, I'm gonna have my skinny cousin write him. So I'm like, okay, I don't need to be bullied from inside the family. I don't want to hear that. But he never wrote back. So I'm like, so I was like, I don't understand, why do people do these things if they don't, they don't want to hear back. Now, your sister, did she do this specifically trying to find some kind of connection too?
I think she did. Because she always thought that she might have a relative out there. She was adopted into a family that had an older brother of hers who was also adopted, not her biological brother, adopted. So they had adopted 2 kids, and then all of a sudden they had 3 kids of their own. So it was a big family of 5.
Well, I would think just knowing like where you're from, like what your roots are, your heritage, even if you don't know the actual, literal connections, you at least know from like what part of Europe you're from or what have you. That would be valuable. I'm always worried, I'm worried that if I do the 23andMe thing, they're going to grow like a little Brian Hill in a laboratory somewhere and like harvest his organs and things. It just, I've seen too many episodes of Black Mirror, I think.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Oh my God.
And if you're going to do that, could I get his kidneys maybe? Because
that's right. Except that they're also going to be a problem.
Daddy needs a new set of kidneys.
Well, my cousin was telling me too that she had to pay some bill or whatever. It's just talking about. She goes, oh, I keep forgetting, it comes up every year or whatever. When her kids were born, she had stem cells harvested from them, and she's paying to store them somewhere so they can do things like grow a kidney in a petri dish or whatever they do with stem cells, or create some kind of vaccine that could eventually save their lives in the future. I'm like,
well, that's
awesome. I'm like,
those are the cells. Yeah, those are the cells that were removed. Those are the cells that are like the building blocks. They make all the different cells in your body. So
I had no idea they did. I mean, I knew they did that or whatever, and I know it actually wasn't it during Bush's era. Wasn't he against it or something? He blocked it or something.
Because that was they tied it into abortion and all that kind of jazz, and they were like, they're growing babies just to harvest their cells and then putting them in trash cans and all that.
Yeah, because lovely people are ignorant and
Speaking of ignorant people, so the thing that I found interesting, and JP, I don't want to step on what you've been up to. Are we caught up?
I think that's it. Other than I have purple hair now, and before that it was orange, and before that it was blue, and then
I would say it was blue just like 2 weeks ago.
So
he's updating at one point.
He's updating his avatar online like every couple of weeks.
What do you guys
like?
Because you and Joey, like, what are you dyeing your hair with? You buying colored hair dye? Or so is it Kool-Aid
the stuff I'm using is called. Well, the stuff I'm using is called Overtone, and it's basically like a colored conditioner.
Just for gay.
Yeah, super gay. Yeah, it's a conditioner. So you just rub it in your hair and let it sit for 10, 15 minutes and then wash it up.
Joey bleached his hair and then used the dye that you get at Rite Aid or whatever. And
it's like Manic Panic or something. Yeah. He's little, that's what I used to use, but this stuff is a lot nicer on your hair. And I got a gift certificate from Henry and Ed for my birthday last year. And so I'm like,
oh, nice.
It doesn't wash out.
And you have light colored hair, so it works easy on you.
Right.
So but I still bleach it because it works better.
The color comes through better if you bleach it. And Joey actually looks really cute with bleached hair too.
That that pink looks so good on him, and I'm so jealous.
I know. I like it.
It was funny. My mom is like, that's like beyond her. Like someone someone would dye their hair. Like someone in our family would dye their hair, and and she's like, well, tell him that I like the blue a lot better than the pink, but the pink is fine also.
Well, that's sweet. That's very sweet.
Gender norms.
What I was going to bring up was, because I found it to be interesting, was that, generally Facebook is sort of an echo chamber, right? I mean, you kind of cultivated these people in your life and they all sort of see things the way you do. And what I found, going back to what's going on with COVID, was that there was something that came up and my friends list wasn't 100% in agreement on that. And it had to do with when you go outside wearing a face covering. And because I had gone for a walk to kind of because I wanted to relax. And I ended up getting more frustrated and kind of disappointed in a general sense by going on a walk, because so many people around me weren't wearing facial covering of any kind. And I actually even had a couple of points where someone was walking right towards me without any mask or anything, and showed no signs of wanting to say, hey, I'm going to go left and you go right, or what have you. And it really made me sad. And I came home and I wrote something on Facebook about it. And we had a lively discussion from people who were like, well, it doesn't make any sense if I'm jogging, it's hard to breathe and I don't want to wear one. Or if you're staying a certain distance from somebody, it shouldn't really matter and I don't want to wear one. And then plenty of people saying, well, I wear one and this and that. And I don't know, I just found it interesting. And I was curious what you guys kind of thought about it. And
So for the first time, I wore this when we went shopping the other day, and put it on, walked up the stairs, and I'm fat, so I'm a little out of breath walking up a couple flights of stairs. And for the entire time we were shopping, I could not get my breath. I felt like I was smothering. I felt like I was drowning, or I couldn't breathe through the thing. And I started panicking. I have asthma. And so I'm used to that, feeling of sometimes you can't breathe, but you just take a little shot of your inhaler and you're fine. And I could
JP,
not do that.
Wait, to interrupt you, is that the bandana you use for poppers? Because you shouldn't use the popper bandana as the regular bandana.
What's a popper bandana? What
this is actually a bandana that Mike bought for
is that a thing?
for Coachella. But
oh yeah, no, that's the thing. If you've gone to Coachella, you have bandanas in your house. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Sure. Mike's a blood. I forgot. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you had a hard time breathing, and so what did you?
And I was having a panic attack, and I was just absolutely fighting it down while we're just standing in line, and people were taking fucking damn long to get through the line. It was just it was crazy. So that my only experience with having to wear that in public was that. When I go for a walk around the block, I haven't worn a mask. And whenever we come across people, we make sure that we're like this, or, one of us will go out into the street, whatever. Mm-hmm. I haven't worn a mask for that. I also don't have any masks, except today one just showed up in the mail. So the first one that I ordered just showed up. So I'm probably wearing it. It's a lot lighter. It's like a Lycra E material. Oh, it's from Bear Thug.
Oh yeah, Bear Thug.
Yeah.
They're one of our sponsors for our events.
I ordered it like a couple days ago, and boom, it showed up today. Yeah. It's like, wow,
super duper nice guys too.
Yeah, they're super nice. I met them a couple years ago at a pool party.
Nice.
So yeah, I haven't really been wearing it if I walk, because I really don't honestly go out. Like, I'm trying not to go out as much as I can. I just go to the store and come home. But when I do take the dog for a walk around the block, our block isn't really that busy, so I rarely run into someone. So I really haven't been wearing it outside like that. And if I do see someone, they usually end up crossing the street or something to like avoid each other. So it really hasn't impacted me that way as far as like being outside. But at the stores, it's crazy how many people like still right now, like I went the other day and people are still trying to squeeze past you and like do stuff. And I'm like patiently waiting for people to get out of the aisle or move, so I can move forward. So I'm keeping my distance from people, and people are just they don't care. Like, they're just squeezing past, stopping right next to you. And I've actually told them, like, excuse me, like, can you go over there? Like, oh, no. And they act shocked, like, oh yeah. And I'm like, are you not consciously thinking about this? Like, it's just weird.
It is like a really interesting time to be alive. Well, because you're being able to see the different mental gymnastics that people are doing. And I think for some people, it's how they're kind of getting through it is to not recognize it for as serious as it is.
Right.
And I mean, I had a guy who was like right up, Joey and I were looking at something at the store, and he was right up on me. And I finally just said, excuse me, can you just give me some distance, please? And he didn't have anything on. And he's like, well, you're taking a long time. And I said, well, that shouldn't really matter, should it? I said, why don't you just give us some distance, and, we'll be done here in a moment. And, and it was like, I like, he looked like he was like super put out by the whole thing. And I think I realized that I have my own issues that existed before this ever started. And it goes, yeah, well, obviously I mean, but this particular one, it goes back to like how, you know, uptight I get, like if I'm in a movie theater and someone's on their phone, because it's, the person isn't taking the people around them into consideration. And you're not asked to do much. And this is something as a society we've decided on for the betterment of everybody else's experience, you know? And when I'm in a store and people aren't giving distance, or they're not wearing, you know, facial covering or what have you, that it triggers that impulse in me, and it makes me upset, because I'm like, this person doesn't give a shit. You know? And it's tough. It's just tough for me when people it's something so simple and they just don't seem like they want to do it. And stresses me out.
Prime example of that is going back to the store situation, like you were saying. So like this was 3 weeks ago. So it was right when everything started kind of happening. And they were saying, stay your distance. So I didn't have any covering yet. And there's a family, a grandma, a mom, and her daughter. And they're in this aisle and they're looking at stuff. And I turn to go into the aisle, and the way that they're standing, they're blocking the whole aisle, you know. One person standing in the center, one other two, whatever. So I just wait about 12 feet away, waiting with my cart. And I'm not saying anything, not even looking at them. I'm on my phone, just like doing stuff, waiting for them to do their shopping and go, you know. So the grandma and the granddaughter go around to the next aisle. And the mom is still sitting there looking at goldfish or crackers or whatever the fuck she was looking at. And she grabs one and then walks away. And then I start to move. And then she sort of turns around real quick and goes back. And so I just stop. And so she puts her stuff back. And then she walks away. And then she turns around and comes back again. She did this like 4 or 5 times. And still, I didn't say anything, didn't react. I was just like, whatever. I'm not in a hurry.
Girl, get your fish and go.
Right. And so I was just like, but I wasn't. I was just like, whatever, this is just how it is. Like, I'm just going to wait and be patient, you know? And she finally gets whatever she gets, and then she goes to the next aisle. So I go over and I'm grabbing my stuff, and I could hear her loud in the other aisle going, I need to get the fuck out of this store. People are just going crazy. That guy was just standing there waiting for me to move. And I'm like, isn't that
so
what we're supposed
about
to
it,
be
and
doing?
you're not doing anything about it.
Yeah. And I'm like,
yeah, maybe you should have.
I mean, it's one thing to be oblivious, but to be intentionally knowing you're there and not doing so.
Well, and then she was like, I could have been staring at that for hours. And I was like, bitch, like, yeah.
And I think if you asked her, she probably would think that COVID is no different than the flu. I would imagine that she probably signs up, you know, in that realm of thinking, you know,
right.
That it's,
well, this was
no different than
and again, this was 3 weeks ago. So I'm wondering if her opinion has changed since then, you know, seeing the numbers and everything. And that's just crazy to me that people are comparing this to the flu. I'm like, one, yeah, 10 of people get the flu and 10 of people die, but not in this short amount of time. Like, that's what.
Right. And it's much more highly contagious than the flu too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easier
not to mention that there's medication that they can give you if you have the flu. I had the flu back in December, and it knocked me on my ass. I mean, literally took me out of the game for 2 or 3 days. And I went to the emergency room, and they gave me liquids, and they gave me Tamiflu. And within 24 hours, I was like, oh, did I have the flu? I didn't even know. And that is not how this thing works, you know? So for a lot of people.
What's crazy to me too is like I don't know if you've seen it, but they've said like that it could have been around in December or January with like less severe symptoms. And in about the same time, like I think it was like late December, I freaking had the symptoms of, like, I had the chills, I had the aches, I didn't have a runny nose, but I had like, it felt like a midget was sitting on my chest and all that stuff. And I've always, in the back of my head, for some reason, looking at all the symptoms, I'm always like, did I just have like a mild case of COVID? Like, was that something?
I worded the same myself.
Weird. It's weird.
I had the flu shot, so as I do every year now, and I was like, yeah, I don't have to worry about the flu. And then end of January, all of a sudden.
So that's a misnomer, though, because just because you get the flu shot doesn't mean you get the flu. It just means you don't get it as severe.
Yeah.
Right.
which I had the flu shot and I still got the flu totally severe, but it won't keep me from getting another flu shot because I feel like it's worth getting.
But anyway, end of January, early February, I had the same thing. Body aches, it just really hurt, and I just felt so fucking tired. I could not stay awake for a few days. Fever, heart racing, I mean, all of that stuff. But I also had like a snot factory in my head. They took my brain out, they just filled it up with a bunch of goo, and it just kept coming out for like 4 days. Gross. So other than that, everything else, I was just like, I wonder if I also had earlier version of COVID. I don't know. And unfortunately, we don't have testing now that's either affordable or fast, and you can't find out if you've had it already. And they also don't know that if you've been infected, they don't know if it's possible that you can get infected or not. They still aren't sure. So that part of it
that's the worst thing about this. There's so much they don't know, and how the asymptomatic people can transmit it to other people and all this other stuff. That's what makes this friggin' thing so scary.
Well, and that's the thing. And when you have an administration that isn't necessarily giving information that's
truthful,
accurate, and that I'm happy that I live in a state where our governor has definitely stepped forward and is kind of taking a logical approach to this, which is good. But I mean, even like, because Justin, you mentioned the whole, because I've seen an article that has gone around about the potential that people had it in California, and that's why our curve is a little flatter and all of that. But I still haven't seen anything that says that's anything other than a theory. Right. And I feel like even that is kind of dangerous if the wrong people sort of get a hold of that idea and it snowballs. Because then they're going to think, well, I have antibodies now because I recovered, and so I'm not going to get it a second time. And that to me is just as dangerous.
Exactly. I mean, even if I did have it, I'm still taking the precaution of I'm treating it like I didn't.
Well, and then talking about theories, the other theory that seems to be getting more and more popular, I'm hearing about it more and more, is that the whole thing was created in a lab that next to that wet market or whatever. You know what I mean?
That's all
and
conspiracy.
It's like, I know, but it's getting more and more traction. I'll tell you that. And and it's like to make chaos here or something. I'm like, I don't know.
Did you hear about the Bill Gates and the 5G and that he's going to control the virus and all that?
Oh my god!
Idiots burning 5G towers.
That is like full on tinfoil kind of shit. That's crazy.
It's just insanity. But it's what people believe and what they put out there. I mean, it's just
it's why primitive human beings rolled bones, to make sense of things. It's why Greek myths exist to begin with. It's because when things are out of control, you got to find some way to explain
something
them
to believe
and
in.
them.
Right.
Yeah. As far as distancing here, people have been pretty good. We have a very walkable neighborhood, and there's several neighbors with kids and stuff like that. So people are walking, and they're pretty good about keeping their distances. As far as like if someone coming at I'm walking outside with the dog, people get in the street, I'll do the same if I have the opportunity in crossing the side of the street. But I haven't been. We've sort of designated him as being the younger, healthier one, which he is. So he's the one who's been doing the grocery shopping, which makes me a little crazy. But we had to actually do a big shopping for a friend who's immunocompromised. And since he's not good with it, he showed me the list, and it was some very specific things that I know he'd be in the store for 4 hours trying to figure out. So we went to the store, and I, masked up, whatever. And I did a no touch thing. So we walked through the store and I didn't touch anything. Doors were automatic.
Pointed at stuff.
I said, yeah, okay. This is what he wants. Get this, get that, or whatever. And it actually worked out pretty well. But generally, I've been trying not to go to the store. I stopped at 7-Eleven on the way home from work, and they have a sign in front. They didn't a few days ago, but I've been wearing a mask, for the past few weeks. I got these cheap masks, and now we got nicer cloth ones in the mail a couple of days ago. But these regular paper surgical masks. So I put it on to go into the 7-Eleven, and sometime last week, and this younger kid is coming out, and he's looking at me like, "What the fuck are you doing?" You know what I mean? It was before we had our order to wear masks in public, and now even 7-Eleven has a sign up in front of it that says, you cannot enter without a mask on, which is great.
Yeah, I think most of the grocery stores around here are doing that too.
They do too,
and they're limiting how many people are going in as well.
Yeah, and then the funny thing that happened to him though is he's been going to Starbucks at least once a day. He's got a little problem, and he when he pulled up to the drive-through the other day, before they opened the window, the woman held up a sign that says you have to have a mask on for me to open the window. And so he had a mask in the car, so he quick put his mask on or whatever, and she was able to do that. And I'm like, that's the reality we're living in, and you cannot complain. You gotta, they're not only keeping them safe, they're keeping you safe too. You know what I mean? So
totally. No,
the whole thing with not touching your face is the worst for me too, because he's like, well, I'm good about that. I'm being so conscious about not touching my face. I'm like, I can't not touch.
Well, the moment I get home, I wash my hands, and I say,
you just scratch your whole
happy birthday, and then I just totally am like, okay.
Like I don't want to jam my fingers in my eyes.
I never realized how much I rub my eyes. I cannot get through a day without rubbing my eyes. There's no way. So I make sure I wash my hands really well.
The thing that worries me the most is that when quarantine is lifted, is that people are going to go and treat this like, woohoo, we're back to life as normal. And
it's not
realizing Jacksonville, Florida. I mean,
exactly. And not realizing that the whole point of this was to slow the rate of infection, not stop the disease. Yeah. And it's still going to be out there, but now medical professions can take care of it easier. And that's the whole point of this. And well, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but because in Shanghai, I think they had made a lot of progress, and then they let people kind of start to go back to what they're doing.
Wave.
And then second wave came, and they just had to close down the public schools again. I think because of that.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And that's the thing that scares me the most. That when they open the quarantine, they need to tell people, say, look, this is not life back to normal. People are still going to get sick. Some people will recover. Some people will die. We need to keep vigilant for a while longer until we have a cure or we have a vaccine or both.
And there's that meme going around, and I don't know if it's true or not. I should have researched before I talk about it, but about 1918 or whatever, and the Spanish flu, and how after, the people were getting better or whatever, and then the Great War or something was over. So then they decided to have a parade, and they had a second wave of it that took out a whole bunch of more people because they felt comfortable with going out and being in thing. I don't know how true that is. Justin Blank.
Oh,
there's Justin.
Yeah, sorry, it flashed. My battery is about to die.
Oh, okay. Do you have a charger nearby?
Yeah, but my headphones are plugged in, so.
We're probably going on like 7 hours of this.
Yeah, we should probably wrap that.
Actually, I gotta get dinner. I gotta get dinner going. So.
So yeah, it's 8:00 for you, Dave.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just it's heating up frozen sauce.
Yeah. Well, then we should wrap it up. Should we say our goodbyes? And I feel like we can tell people that during a break, I think we all decided that we will probably be doing this again.
Yeah,
sure. I'm I'm generally working during the week. I get off at 2 p.m. my time on Friday, so Friday afternoon is free. But otherwise, if we just set a lot of time to the weekend during the week, I can make sure I'm there for it.
Yeah, cool. My calendar is pretty much wide open, unless there's something really neat, unless there's something cool streaming, like yesterday they had the cast of That Thing You Do came on and did a Zoom, and we all watched the movie together. It was super fun.
Well, what did you? What I was going to say too about, we were talking about media stuff. I don't want to start this up again, but Disney Plus. A thing I was watching on Disney Plus today was an old, The Wonderful World of Disney or whatever that they used to show on Sunday nights. I remember when I was a kid. This was an older one from the '60s, and they were showing the opening day of Small World on the thing, and so they showed the parades and like all the big deal and Walt Disney cutting that thing and everything.
I will say, Dave, real quick, I know we're not going to get to touch on a lot of pop culture of this one, but on Disney Plus, watch The Imagineering Story.
Yeah, somebody else told me about that too. Yeah.
So good.
That is so good, and it's so amazing, and it tells you the whole history of the parks and all the stuff that they come up with and what they're working on now. Definitely, if you like that, then you'll love. Yeah. You'll love that show.
I'll definitely watch it.
Well, then why don't we say our goodbyes, since Justin's running out of steam, and we'll save like tugs and pop culture and maybe a little bit more lighthearted fare for next go round.
Cool.
Yeah,
Brian, go for it. You start, Dave.
All right.
Brian, whatever your name is.
Should I go? How do we say goodbye?
This is episode whatever, Brian. I think.
Okay, well, do I say goodbye or do you guys say goodbye to me? I don't remember.
No, you just say, I'm Brian. Goodbye, Brian.
Okay, I'm Brian.
It's been 7 years.
Goodbye,
No,
Brian.
6 years.
Bye, Brian.
And this is
Okay.
Justin.
Do you have tugs? Do you
Goodbye,
have tugs for
Justin.
anybody? Justin?
Well, maybe we should. Do you want to do tugs next time, or do we do
Yeah,
it now?
let's do it
I don't
next
know how
time.
much battery Justin has.
Yeah, I'm
Next time.
dying. So the quicker
All
we
right,
get
fine.
off of this.
Well,
This
we're
has
all
been
done.
fun.
Wait. Should we
Hopefully we'll see
redo
you
that?
all
Because
soon.
we've been let's redo that because we've all been talking a lot between
All right.
it. So let's start over.
I'm not cutting into editing.
Okay,
Alright.
start at 0. Everybody to the zeros position.
I'm Brian.
Bye,
Goodbye,
Brian.
Brian. And I'm Justin.
Bye,
Bye,
Justin.
Justin.
And
Bye,
I'm
JP.
Dave. Oh!
Oh, well,
Bye, you guys.
goodbye.
All right, bye.
Well,
Peace out.
Thanks for
Bye,
watching
good
the
night.
first episode of Socially Distanced.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Peace, Udi.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
We're done. All right, guys.
Okay, so we're